Hello and welcome to A Normal Meets a Nerd, a podcast with me, Dylan Evans, a very normal person that loves asking abnormal questions that you've always wanted to know the answer to.
And me, Darragh, a non-normal nerd, who will answer those questions as best I can.
And expect to hear some questions like this. Okay, starting off with an easy one. Have aliens ever visited Earth?
Right. This is very early in the proceedings to go full mind-blowing, but there is a real scientific theory, not a crackpot theory, that not only have aliens visited Earth, but we are those aliens. And this is not people with tinfoil hats.
This is too early on. What do you mean? How?
So
when? Why?
The idea is that life in the universe is not actually rare at all. It's really, really common.
Okay.
And it spreads by meteors and comets, and there is a theory, it is just a theory, I personally don't sign up to it, but there is a theory that a comet or an asteroid or a meteor at some point landed on Earth with some fraction of life on it, like a protein on it, or DNA on it, or RNA on it, and that was the starting point. And all it needed was to land somewhere where there was water or where there were suitable conditions.
I believe that.
Yeah, and that's called panspermia. It's that there's pan means everywhere and spermia means life. That there's life.
What's in
panspermia?
the pan? What's in
the
the pan?
I know, outrageous. So the idea is that all of life is actually alien, and that has.
Oh, this is hurt. Yeah. What do you mean all life is alien?
So all life on Earth has come from outer space. Originally, the origin point of it was something that came in.
So everything's an alien.
Space. Yeah, essentially. Or is at least descended from
Some animals, I think, could be aliens. An octopus.
Octopus are so funky and so weird.
That's an alien.
No.
Couldn't. Out of all of them.
There's a real problem with this theory, though, and it's essentially they're just kicking the can down the road. So if they say, oh, life arose somewhere else and made it through space and happened to hit Earth, but where did that life come from?
Where did that come from?
So it's like,
and where did that come from?
It's like a galactic version of the chicken and the egg. And the likelihood of anything surviving going through space is low. And the likelihood of it hitting Earth is really low. And the likelihood of it hitting Earth at a particular time when there's water, because remember, there's not always water on Earth.
Yeah, true.
There used to be water on Mars. You know, there's a chasm in Mars called the Aquinas Chasm or something like that. And it was, miles wide from one of the biggest waterfalls that we could ever consider. But Earth didn't always have water. Sometimes it was molten rock. So there's only a brief window in galactic terms of time and space when a very particular rock that happened to have some life molecules on it landed on Earth in exactly the right way, didn't burn up coming through the atmosphere, lots of things.
So you don't think aliens have visited Earth? We have all those sightings. What about the people being probed? Come on. Someone must have been probed.
Generally very lonely people who want attention. And it's always strange that it's people in North America who live in the countryside who...
That's where they'd go.
Yeah, that's exactly where they'd go. If an alien came to Earth, it would much more likely go to the sea than it would the land.
It's mostly sea, I suppose.
Yeah,
octopus. This is what I'm trying to tell you. This is what I'm trying to say.
But you just have to think of the scale of the universe. There's probably life out there.
So you believe in aliens?
Yes. I would be very, very surprised if we are the only place where this has happened. Terrifying. But it's likely that it's so far away that they would never visit here. And the other thing is, if it arose in water like it did on Earth, they may not have ever got out of water. And that's a barrier in itself, which means they never learned to fly, which means they never left. It's much more likely that any life on Earth will be off Earth will be water-based.
See, I think we're looking for the wrong thing with aliens.
Yes.
I think we want, like, Mr. E.T. looking man. Which I think, could it exist, like, did I say in gas, a fart-based alien?
It could, or a colour-based alien, or...
Light.
We don't know.
Planets.
The other thing is that because most of life seems to have evolved from a single point, so we're all distantly related to each other in the tree of life, there's some basic functions that we all share. So, our cells work really similarly to things that are completely not related to us.
Not an octopus there.
On a cellular level we do. So if you go right in. So the basic functions of life are the same because they kind of arose in the same place from the same origin. On another planet, it could be completely different. Their cells could be the size of a house, or they could they might not have cells at all.
Planets could be aliens then.
There could be ones where the entire surface of a planet is covered in a living being. There's a tree in America that's basically clonal, and it's hundreds of acres. There's a fungus that's like miles across.
And it's one thing.
The honey fungus, yeah. And it's one individual.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't want to know that. That's
so
scary.
we don't have any idea. And the universe is so spectacularly big. To give you an idea of how big it is, our galaxy, which is not in any way special, and there's millions and millions of galaxies, it's 100,000 light years across. So it would take light 100,000 years to go across our galaxy.
That doesn't make sense.
So if there was an alien on the other side of our galaxy and it somehow managed to look at Earth, the light that it's looking at, because when you see something, it's the light that travels, that hits your eye,
See, this
is 100,000 years old.
This bit confuses me as well about the light. Like when apparently if you look at a star, like that's probably already exploded.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm looking at it.
No,
But
you're looking at it
looking
where it was a long time ago.
But I'm seeing it.
If you look at the sun, you're looking at where the sun was about 8.5 minutes ago, because it takes.
But it's not. It was there.
Was
Darragh,
there.
I seen it.
It was there.
I've seen it, mate. I've
Because
seen it.
it's just how your body works. So your eyes, when you see something, you're not seeing the object, you're seeing the light that reflects off it. The light waves have to go into your eye for you to see it. So it's the light that you see.
So we're like always in delay.
Yeah, so
Like
if an alien is 10 million light years away and they look at the Earth somehow with some magical telescope, they'll see Earth 10 million years ago. So they'll be looking at the megafauna and the giant mammoths and all that
So
kind
say
of
we
stuff.
put a big, massive mirror miles away. Like
Yeah.
we're talking, however, time passes.
Yeah.
And if I looked at that, what would the reflection be? Dinosaurs.
It would have to be so far away.
Yeah, we've got the best telescope. We've got a
Yeah,
giant
so it
mirror.
would have to be like 30 million light years away. And
We'd see dinosaurs.
no.
What would we see? I'd see myself like this.
If you were 65 million light years away from Earth and you look back, you would see the end of the dinosaurs.
That makes no sense. Science makes no sense. Cut. Makes no sense.
But yeah, basically it could be we're all aliens, but probably not.
Something a bit less silly now.
Yes.
What would win in a fight, a lion or a bear?
The serious questions.
Yes.
So the internet loves what would win in a fight question.
We want to see.
Yeah, but this is one that we actually know the answer to, definitely. So,
What do you mean?
Well, lions and bears don't normally run into each other.
No.
But there was a period in time when they were deliberately put against each other to fight.
To fight?
Yeah. So in 1849, there was a gold rush in California, and a lot of people moved to California looking for gold, but they were mostly men. And it was like frontier towns. There was very little for them to do, and they had to put on entertainments. And at the time, people thought fighting animals was an entertainment, so they used to have grizzly bears and Californian bears fighting other animals. And they started out with bulls, but the bears were able to kill the bulls really easily. So they said, you know what, we need to bam this up a notch. So they shipped in lions from Africa.
Shipped
Yeah,
in
they
lions.
had someone go to Africa, capture a lion, put it in a cage, and bring it all the way to California in the 1840s. It would have taken months to get there.
That's insane.
Yeah, it cost an absolute fortune. And then they would put a lion fighting a bear.
And the winner is
Always the bear.
always the bear.
Always. Not just, it got to a point where when they were fighting bears against other animals, they used to bet on how quickly it would kill the other animal rather than whether it would win or not. Bears are, especially grizzly bears, are incredibly powerful.
They're terrifying.
They're so terrifying. They've got really thick fur, so nothing can really get a bite in on them. They've got, like, have you ever seen a bear's paws when they hold them up, when they're anesthetized? Like a human hand is like a child's hand against it. Huge big nails, massive teeth.
Long arms.
Yeah, they can run as fast as, like, nearly as fast as a horse.
That's insane.
Yeah, you don't run away from a grizzly bear. If a grizzly bear is attacking you, you just lie down and hope it doesn't kill you.
They climb trees.
They can climb trees like a monkey. They are unbelievable animals. So when they were fighting these animals, they basically crush the skull of the lion. No problem.
Like no competition.
None whatsoever. The bear would probably get minor injuries, but yeah, the bears always won. And they used to do it against bulls or multiple bulls, and that was, the bull would sort of try and sweep at it with its horns, and it would sweep its head up, trying to gut the bear, basically.
Yeah.
And that's why in stock market now, they do bull market is one that's going up, because the bull used to fight upwards and a bear used to sweep its paws down. And that's
No way.
And that's why it's called a bull versus a bear.
Oh my god, that's.
But yeah, basically, the only thing that can kill a bear is a human with weapons or maybe another bear.
Nothing. I don't know who's been doing bears PR. Like, why are they considered like these like cute little things? I think they're the scariest thing on the planet.
They are, but their babies are amazing. They're so cute and fluffy, and they're the origin of one of the best expression origins in the world.
What do you mean?
Do you know the phrase "lick it into shape"? To lick something into shape. Now, behave. When there's a phrase where, you know, things aren't quite up to standard and you have to get it into shape, you lick it into shape.
Yeah.
It's a really old phrase. And the reason why it's really old is because in medieval times, I'd love to say I'm making this up, but I'm not. They believed that baby bears came out completely formless, just like a lump of jelly, and the mother had to literally lick them into bear shape. No, that was a widely held belief in, like, you know, in the 13 and 1400s. Yeah, and then, so when a lot of baby animals are born, they're kind of sticky and stuff, and the mother licks them to clean them.
Yeah.
And someone had obviously seen this and put 2 and 2 together and
Licks
got 11.
them into shape.
Yeah. So to lick into shape was originally because they thought bears came out as a formless blob, and the mother had to literally lick them into bear shape.
That's insane. But anyway, a bear would beat a lion.
If you're going to bet on the bear.
Here's one. What would happen if the Earth suddenly stopped spinning? Just stopped.
So if it slowed down, it's very different. But if it just stopped, like
Bang.
someone hit the brakes,
Yeah.
really, really depends on where you're standing on the planet. So if you are near the equator, you're in way more trouble than if you're at the North or South Pole. So the Earth spins, and the speed of that spin is about 1,000 miles an hour.
I disagree, but go on.
At the equator, only at the equator.
Right.
But at the exact poles, it's barely spinning at all because it's spinning on its axis. So think about this. If you're a kid in a playground, you're on one of those roundabouts, you know, the things that spin around. Yeah. If you're in the middle of it when it's spinning around,
it's not as
fast. But if you're on the edge, you get flung out really quickly. It's because that's how it works. The equator, now if you just pop it up into a ball, it's the same thing. If you're on the bit that it's spinning on, that's barely moving. It's only doing a revolution every so often.
Dizzy in the middle.
You get flung around, and it's the same with the Earth. So if the Earth suddenly stops spinning, and say you're at the equator, you're on your holidays, you're down in the tropics, you would suddenly get launched at literally like 1,700 kilometers an hour, 1,000 miles an hour in one direction.
Imagine that.
And so with everything else, the sea would also go. So you would have a row of tsunamis all going in the same direction, because it would be like you're carrying a basin of water and you shake it. It just goes, it would all slop over to one side. The atmosphere wouldn't necessarily stop spinning. So if that happened, relative to where you're being flung, if you did manage to stay still somehow, there would be the strongest winds that have ever happened on Earth, because they'd be going at like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles an hour. It'd be absolutely immense hurricanes that you'd never ever seen. It would tear everything apart.
I didn't expect this.
Yeah. So the friction of that would also probably, you know, raise temperatures massively, because air moving at that speed causes friction. It would be horrific.
What, wind gets warm?
Anything, wind, if it's anything moving
Wind
over
is
anything
cold.
else. Yes,
I'm aware of this.
Anything moving over anything else at really high speeds causes friction.
Right.
So this is like entering the atmosphere. You know, you burn up.
Yeah,
so, but if you happen to be, say, working at the Antarctic station, you might not really notice at all. The sun would stop moving.
Say when all like the winds and that calm down, then what would we have?
We would have, if anybody survived, which they probably wouldn't, but if they did, we would have a planet where one side is baking hot and the other side is freezing cold. A day would last exactly a year, because you'd only go around the sun and it'd be relative. So for several months of the year, any individual point would be in full sunlight all of the time.
So how fast does the Earth spin? You just said.
So at the equator, it's about 1,700 kilometers an hour, which is about 1,000 miles an hour.
Why don't we feel it? I feel like I almost don't believe it.
Yeah,
I almost don't believe it's spinning that fast.
There's a thing called the conservation of momentum. So this is an idea in physics. Not an idea, it's a thing in physics. Sorry.
This theory.
Sorry, physicists. This is real. I'm not saying it's just an idea. So if you are on a train that's going at 150 miles an hour, and you jump, you don't go flung to the back of the train.
Good point. I've tried.
Yeah, so it doesn't affect you, because your momentum is you're moving with the train. So
but it doesn't even look like it's spinning that fast. Like if I stood on the moon with like one of those speed guns the police have and pointed at Earth
at the equator,
that's going to say 1,700 miles an hour on my little reader. Beep, beep.
Well, think about how big the Earth is and how fast it turns around. So the Earth is like,
it's slow.
Its diameter its circumference is 40,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
And it turns around once a day. So it can do 40,000 kilometers in a day. That's a lot.
I don't believe it. It doesn't spin that fast. It doesn't. Settled. Believe me.
Yeah. Well, what we don't want to see is the Earth stop suddenly. That would be tricky for everyone. But if you are going to be a supervillain and make it happen, do it from the North Pole. Santa would be all right.
And he'd do it.
He would as
Evil
well.
Santa.
That's it. Too many people on the naughty list. Boom.
Do blind people dream?
Short answer is yes. But
Visually?
it depends.
Okay.
So people who are born blind, who have never seen anything, tend to have audio dreams, smell-based dreams, touch-based dreams. So it's different sensory inputs dominate their dreams. People who go blind as a young child largely have these, but usually have some visual bits in there as well. And people who go blind as adults or have recently gone blind have visual dreams, but the amount of visual information in them is usually reduced compared to people who still have sight.
But they would see in the dream. They'd see stuff.
Not if they'd never seen anything before.
Yeah, but they have. Yeah.
Oh, if they have done before, yes, it will run through. So a lot of people who have gone blind still have visual dreams, and unless they have what's called aphantasia, the thing where people can't visualize things in their mind, they will continue to have like those kind of things they can visually see in their mind, visions, but they can't see with their eyes anymore. So they can still picture things in their head, but they can't see things. So it's a very weird thing. So dreaming's really badly understood in general.
I was just about to ask, why do we dream? What's the point in that? What is the point?
If we don't, it's really bad for us.
What do you mean?
Our brains stop working properly.
If we don't dream?
If you don't enter into dreaming sleep, after most studies stop after 3 or 4 days because it's ethically terrible to keep people awake any longer because it's so bad for them. So a lot of it they think is to do with memory consolidation. So it's how your brain sort of files and registers memories into long-term memory and things like that. That's one like fairly strong opinion.
System.
Yeah, basically. And it's a way for our brain cells to sort of like be cleaned and to basically go into maintenance mode. So our brain is so critical to everything that we do. You need to have a shutdown mode when everything can be like processed and worked away. That you can't do. Obviously, you couldn't have, yourself dreaming while you're walking around. You'd walk out in front of a car or something. Yeah. So it has to be a time when you're shut down. So your brain sort of goes into overnight, the cleaners come in, sort it all out. There's waves of brain fluid go through, all that kind of stuff. But
what is a dream? Like, did they mean anything? What do you think of when people almost dream the future or like they dream whatever?
I think the people who say they dream the future cherry pick something out of their dream. So they probably dream hundreds of thousands of things, and 3 of them are kind of like something that happens to them.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time it's fairly banal events. It's like, oh, I dreamed, I got my coffee and I dropped my change, and then I got my coffee, and that's not an unremarkable. Yeah. That's not a remarkable thing. It's just not. It's not of interest. But we have a bias in how we think about things. So if we hear something, and then somebody tells us some interesting fact, like on this show, and then you see it in the real world, your brain goes, oh, I heard about that on that wonderful podcast we were listening to, and now it really registers. Whereas if they hadn't heard this first, they might forget about it. Right. So, we search for things like that. And I think when you're interpreting dreams, you reach a little bit to try and make it fill the idea that you have rather than the real reason behind it.
What are those dreams where, I don't know if you've had them, where like you fall and you wake up and you're like, oh my God. And that's the scariest one. Like, where's that from? What's that? What is that?
That actually is one of the very few inbuilt things that all humans have.
Yeah.
So you are only born with one proper fear, and that's the fear of falling.
Okay. And would it be falling from trees?
Falling from trees. So that they think goes back to when we lived in trees, and while you were asleep, if you felt you were falling, if you think about it, you grab, you go, you jump up, and often your hands will clasp. So that's trying to grab the branch to stop you from falling from a tree while you're asleep. God. That's the thought behind it anyway.
I believe that. That's probably what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's mind blowing.
Yeah, and it's like the reflex that all babies have. You can pick them up. So babies have a grasping reflex,
right?
And they can hold their body weight. So you can take a newborn baby and put like your fingers out, and they won't pull up, but they'll hang for a lot longer than most adults can if you're willing to try it. But you lose it. Don't do that with your baby. But Yeah, no, you can pick a baby up and they'll hang on for quite a substantial amount of time because it's a reflex from when we were apes, basically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So chances are that jumping awake is so you don't fall out of the tree.
One I've always wondered, right, is if poison expires, does it become less dangerous or more dangerous? Like less poisonous or more poisonous?
It really depends on the poison.
Right, okay.
Like really very strongly depends on the poison. So expiry dates on food are there because a lot of the time microorganisms will grow, so they'll get moldy or they'll go rancid or something like that. Something that's very predictable and we know it's not really food anymore. It's not something safe to eat. But expiry dates on things like poisons are when they stop being what's called a controlled substance. So you've probably heard that before, controlled substances to do with drugs and things. That means that we know all about them. They're controlled. We know how poisonous they are. We know how dangerous they are. And everything eventually will break down. Right. You know, there's an inherent thing where complex things, and most poisons are molecularly very complex, will eventually break down into other products. But that can be in a very unpredictable way.
That sounds more dangerous.
Yeah.
Then.
So in some cases, it's not. So
it
say
would go null and void, no poison, no more.
Say peroxide, right? You use it to dye your hair. It's H2O2. So that's its formula. So it's water. It's water with an extra oxygen. Right. But it's also really unstable. And after a long enough time, a lot of it becomes water. So that actually becomes less poisonous. Don't drink peroxide. It's not safe. But it becomes less dangerous as time goes on. Eventually it will just turn into water and oxygen. But something else, some sort of like industrial chemical that's toxic and poisonous, we have no idea what the end products are going to be.
Could make a mega poison.
It could be even more poisonous. It could have...
Super poison.
It could be something that is only poisonous in large doses, becomes poisonous in very small doses.
Concentrated. Like cordial, poison cordial.
Unfortunately, no, it doesn't become concentrated necessarily, but it could break into 5 or 6 different things and they could interact with each other. So it's also weirdly, it can be the expiry date isn't for what's in it, it's what it's contained in. So there's an expiry date on water bottles because the plastic has an expiry date. So the container that it's in can break down.
And become like plastic infused water.
Yeah. And
well, that's terrifying.
Yeah,
nice
so
one for that.
It's all that kind of thing. The main thing is that we usually with poisons and drugs and controlled substances, we have really good knowledge about what it does. And if it's past its expiry date, there's no guarantee that we know what it does. So
it's more dangerous.
It's more dangerous.
If you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
A classic internet question, and a classic one to ask children as well. And a lot of people will say things like an eagle and things, but I actually have an answer that I think is the right one.
There's no correct answer to this.
I think there is. And when you hear the name of it, you might understand why. It's called the immortal jellyfish.
Go on.
So this is a jellyfish that is technically immortal.
It doesn't die.
It lives forever. It does die if something kills it, but if nothing kills it, it just lives forever.
How?
So it's got various life stages and it's a little tiny jellyfish. And when it gets stressed or injured or anything like that, it reverts back to its youthful form and then goes back through the life cycle again. So it just goes around again.
That's insane.
Yeah. So it would be like you make it to 60 odd, you need to get a hip replacement. You go, actually, do you know what? I'm going back to being a teenager. Let's go again.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Now, the downside is that it's a tiny jellyfish,
it's a point,
and
not,
you know
that's why you wouldn't actually pick that.
It's got no internet, but
it's just there's no existence. It's a little blob.
Yeah. So there are some other ones that you might have. Koalas, they're great.
Why?
They sleep for 20 hours a day, and their farts smell like eucalyptus.
Farts smell nice. Sleep lots. No.
Let's be honest. What's the best bit of the day? It's when you get into bed, you go, oh. And if you Dutch oven yourself, it'll clear your sinuses. And that's a clip for social.
Yeah. That's good.
But yeah, it's there's loads of like cool animals that have like.
I'd go eagle.
Eagle.
I love any birds of prey. They're massive. I remember seeing a bald eagle once standing up.
They're surprisingly large.
It's
aren't they?
terrifying. And the
Yeah.
feet. It's insane.
Yeah, I went to like a bird of prey show, and they had these giant steppe eagles from the Asian plains and stuff, and it's like a small plane has gone over your head.
Like the wingspan of them,
absolutely
like,
huge,
like 12 foot on. What's the biggest bird? The
albatross.
Yeah, the big. Yeah. It's just that looks so fake. An albatross looks so fake. It's a seagull,
and
it's like someone's put a seagull on Photoshop and just stretched it.
Yeah,
and
they
insane.
Sometimes they don't land for years. They just.
For years?
Yeah, for a long, long time. Like they go for months and months and months without landing. They just go over the sea. They eat. They even sleep on the wing. They just fall asleep while they're flying.
They fall asleep flying.
The reason why their wings are so big is to preserve energy. They very rarely flap. When they take off, they do like a lot of flapping, but otherwise they barely move their wings.
They just sleep in the sky.
Yeah, some do.
I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah, some do. Well, not all of them do, but some do.
That's mind blowing.
Yeah, it is. It's mad, isn't it?
Mind's blown again.
There's also a thing called a brown antechinus, which is kind of like, it looks like a little rodent. And there's a particular reason why it's pretty sweet being a brown antechinus. In mating season, they go bonkers.
I know a few of these. I might know some of these.
To the point where the males have so much sex over about a 2 or 3 week period that they literally shag themselves to death. And if you're going to go...
That's why I want to go, yeah. That's the best confirmed. Check.
Yeah, it's like when Homer in The Simpsons is asked, how did I die? Naked girl avalanche. Well, yeah, the brown antechinus just gives it loads.
Well played.
Yeah.
Well played. Does a straw have one hole in or 2 holes in?
So this is something that comes up a lot.
Yes.
The internet is very passionate about this.
Yes.
But there's no need. There is a definitive answer.
Exactly.
And the answer is 1.
2. Don't do me
Come
like
on.
this. Don't do me like this. It's 2.
No,
It is 2.
It's not.
It is. There's an entrance point.
Yeah.
1. There's an exit point.
They're just
2.
2 ends of the same hole.
No. What about like a tunnel, like an underground tunnel? You have an entrance and an exit.
The Mersey tunnel.
The Mersey tunnel, for example.
So how many Mersey tunnels are there?
There's 1 tunnel, but there's 2 holes.
So a tunnel and a hole are not the same thing in your mind.
What? Wait, no, not that easy. Not going to be that easy.
Let's look at it a different way. A donut, a ring donut. How many holes?
Yeah, it's a different shape, though.
It's exactly the same shape.
It's a different
It's just
shape.
stretched. So how long does it have to be before? Does it like what if you cut a straw in half? Does it have 1 hole or 2?
No, it's still 2.
And if you cut a little ring off it, so it's the same size as a donut.
When you say it like that,
At what point does it stop becoming 2 holes?
If it's long, you need you're going in 1 bit.
So
if
it's longer than it is across or something.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay, mathematically there is 1 hole. Okay, so definitively there is, but there's a way to look at this that you're not going to like, but it kind of proves my point. If you take a straw and you fill it up with, say, silicone or something, and you pop that solid shape out,
yeah,
how many shapes are there? How many cylinders are there?
There's
you
1.
You can say it. There's 1.
There's 1.
Yeah, unfortunately it's 1. Let us know in the comments what you think, and if it's 2, you're wrong.
What is déjà vu?
Well, it's not a glitch in the matrix, we think.
What is déjà vu?
So, it's not a glitch in the matrix, we think.
No, okay.
It's much more likely to be something else about how our brain works. And there's a few different ideas. So, one of them is what's called split perception. So, we take in a lot of information that you don't realise. Corner of your eye, background sound, and it doesn't get your full attention. You know, you don't have to, because you wouldn't be able to function otherwise. You have to pay attention to certain things, and you can fade things out, and your brain does that automatically. And sometimes you think you've never seen it before, but you actually have. You just never registered it at the time.
But it's still filed. It's filed in your brain.
It's in there somewhere. So that's why it's kind of half forgotten, not very clear, that kind of thing. So that's one idea.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes sense, you know.
A little bit.
Especially if it's, you know, you're coming around a corner and you see a view and you go, oh, this looks really familiar. You may well have done years ago, have driven straight past it and you didn't look around the corner, but you caught it out the corner.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. The other one is that it's actually a glitch in your brain. So our brain has different types of memory. So we've got short-term memory, long-term memory. And normally what happens is it goes short-term memory first, obviously, that's what it's there for, and then if we need to keep it or if we file it away, it gets put into the filing system.
Put it in the tank.
Usually after a few seconds. It's not very long. And there's an idea, not very well proven, that Deja vu is when stuff doesn't go to short-term memory by accident. It goes straight to long-term memory. And that makes it feel like an old memory, something you've seen before, even though it's new. Now, there's not a huge amount of evidence for that, but logically, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, have you ever had deja vu?
Did you say that to me before?
I've had it once.
Yes, yeah,
I've had it once and it didn't make sense and I can't put it together. I was in Greece. I was in some little town in Greece, never been there before.
Yeah.
Seen a church and there was something about it. I was like, I've seen that. So that wasn't me in a past life. I wasn't like back in Greece back then.
Yeah.
Probably not. So it's not past life stuff.
Well, I don't believe that past lives exist, so that's
That's
a big sort of hitch in that plan. It can also be about how our brain works. So in that instance, our brain works by associations. It's really, really easy to remember things if they're associated with something else. So if you can associate it with a tune, it's really easy. If you can associate it with smells, especially. You get a smell, it brings you back to your holidays.
That's weird. Yeah. Freaks me out.
So, but that can also happen with visual cues, where you see something that's kind of like something you've seen before. It could have even been, a TV show or a movie or something.
Right.
And your brain sort of parses them together.
This. Yeah.
I've seen this.
Yeah.
You might have even seen that exact one on TV and not realised.
Yeah.
Or it could be,
okay.
especially say a church in certain parts of the world, they all kind of look the same.
Yeah,
they're built to a plan, the ones that are built at the same time. So it could be that you haven't seen that one before, but you've seen something so like it that it triggers something in your head.
Okay.
Yeah, it can also be associated with things like hallucinations and seizures and things when your brain is misfiring.
Right.
But for most people, it's probably you've either actually seen it before, you've seen something similar to it, and it kind of just triggers it.
That's not fun.
Yeah, I know. Oh well.
So why are crisp packets half empty? What's that about?
Crisp packets are not half empty. That is not true.
They're
half full of crisps. And I'm not just being an optimist. The other half is something.
What do you mean?
So back in the day, crisps used to be sent in packets and you would get them and they'd be mashed into tiny pieces.
But they were full? It was like a full bag?
It was a full bag, but they would be basically crumbs because they'd be at damage in shipping. And they realised one of the best things they can do is to pump nitrogen into the packet and seal it. So nitrogen is non-reactive. It stops them breaking up and it keeps them fresh for longer because they don't react to the nitrogen. They don't go stale. So the amount of air in the packet in the old days meant that they went stale really quickly. They had very short shelf life and they'd get smashed up. With hardly any air in there because it's mostly nitrogen. This is why crisps can last for weeks and weeks in their packet and they never were able to. So,
you sound like you're talking from Big Crispy.
I wish I was. If you would like to sponsor our
crisps,
it is way better. So the thing you have to look at is the weight. The weight of crisps has not changed. The packets are slightly bigger. They've got lots of nitrogen in them to keep them fresh and to stop them getting smashed up.
So it's better that they're full of air and what? It's better that
they're not full of air. Yeah.
It's better than that they're less full.
Yeah, it's way better to have crisps and nitrogen than loads of crisps and air. Because your crisps would be smashed into pieces and they'd be stale. This is why Pringles are the shape they are.
I was just about to ask what's with Pringles then?
So Pringles, the shape that they're called is called a hyperbolic paraboloid. That's the shape. That's what it is.
I won't remember that.
That kind of saddle shape. And that's designed very specifically that they nest on top of each other. You know the way they sit really tightly on top of each other. And it means that if you put them into a circular tube, they fill the entire thing and they can't move around very much. So when they get shipped, Pringles don't get broken up.
Genius.
Yeah. And the best bit is the guy who invented that, Fred Bauer, his ashes were buried in a Pringles can.
No way.
True story,
No
yeah.
way.
He
what flavour?
I think it might be original, but
the OG.
The OG. Yeah. The worst flavour of Pringle, but very appropriate. Yeah.
Time for some shower thoughts. These are questions sent in by our listeners, you, so get your comments in now and you might get them answered. These are questions that have randomly occurred to them, popped into their head, and we will answer them. Get commenting. Let's get started.
I'm slightly dreading this, but yes, let's do it.
Why is drinking milk from a random woman weird, but from a random animal of another species not? I've always thought this, by the way. I've always thought this. Like breast milk women seems very weird. Cow milk, fine. What's that about?
We have sort of social taboos about food that are logically nonsense. Mm-hmm. So no one will eat insects. They think that's terrible. But they will pay a fortune to eat lobster.
Yeah.
which is just a giant arthropod.
Sea bug?
It's essentially...
It's a sea bug.
Yeah, it's from the same sort of group.
But it's a bit meaty. I can't imagine insects are very meaty. That's
Well,
my problem.
You could get large ones, but even the prawns, shrimp are tiny. They're the size of, a larva of an insect.
I had prawns last night.
Yeah. But, honey, everyone goes on about how great honey is. I keep bees. Honey is kind of bee vomit,
What?
But they ingest the nectar and they spit it out and they condense it and they let it evaporate.
It's
and so
bee vomit.
It goes inside the bee.
I didn't know this.
Well, how do you think they collect nectar from the flowers? Do you think they've
honestly, I've never fully thought about it.
Yeah, they don't carry around a little bottle. They carry it inside themselves. But, that's perfectly fine. And milk is the same. So we tend to only have milk from farm animals that eat plants only. So you never get dog milk. Not a thing.
Until now. Sponsored by
So,
milk.
that kind of thing. We always had milk. But taking it from another human is just considered weird.
Have we always had cow milk? Like, what was the first... I always think, what was
No,
the first
human
fella
milk.
doing?
Oh, the first fella was going, that's like the woman milk. It's nutritious, and we have this animal. Let's take as much nutrition out as possible because it's high in calories, lots of other things. But only a certain subsection of the human population drank milk for a very long time because most people in the world are allergic to milk when they're adults.
Most?
A huge proportion of Asians and things, at a certain point in history, there was a mutation mostly in Europe that became dominant in the population. That meant you weren't lactose intolerant as an adult. So you were not meant to drink milk as an adult.
Yeah, that's it.
And
of course.
You're not meant to. We're not designed for that at all. Like, we didn't evolve for that.
Yeah.
So, same with animals. Kittens drink milk, cats don't. That kind of thing. So, but there was a subsection of the population in Europe that drank milk. And for a long time, Asian people who met Europeans thought they stank like milk. They thought they smelt milky. Because, and it's still in the Far East, very few people in Japan, Korea, an awful lot of people are lactose intolerant. That's why you don't get cheese and cream used in their cuisine.
Oh my God, this has blown my mind. I know it shouldn't, it's milk chat, but that's genuinely blown my mind.
So it's starting to spread and it's becoming more dominant now and that kind of thing, and because of, globalization. But for a very large amount of time, pretty much only certain parts of Africa, the Middle East and Europe had people actually eating cheese and drinking milk.
Here's one. Why is there no other version of goodbye? Why can't we say bad bye? Good point.
It is if you don't understand where goodbye comes from. So goodbye is actually a contraction. It's not. It wasn't originally one word.
What do you mean?
It was originally "God be with ye."
God, the goodbye. Yeah.
So then it became
end.
"God be ye, God goodbye."
Oh.
So that's why it was never good, as in
it was
positive.
never good. Like
it was God, not good.
Oh my God! No way! Oh my God!
So it wasn't originally OMG. It was oh my God. Yeah. So it was "God be with ye." So it was like blessing someone on their travels.
What's hello?
I think it's something to do with like hailing someone. So hello, it's from the same origin.
Oh, okay.
If you know better, in the comments.
Yeah, get the comments in. Get the comments in. Next question from one of our listeners. Why can't you have a wet sense of humour? That's a good one. Try sense of humour. Why can't it be wet? What would that be?
I think it would be something that's, really loud and obvious and out there. Because, dry tends to be subtle. It doesn't make a splash. Maybe that's why it's called dry. I don't know. But, yeah, I think this is one of the impossible questions to answer.
But keep them coming in.
Yeah.
Keep them coming in. Next one. How do attractive nurses get accurate heartbeats? That's a great question.
It is a great question. Yeah, it really, really is.
I've never thought of that.
Yeah, so this is a genuine problem in a way in medicine. So it's really, really hard for people to act normally when they're in a medical situation. And it's usually not attraction that's the main problem. It's fear. Mm-hmm. So there's a thing called, the white coat effect. And when people see a doctor in a white coat in a medical situation, they get tense. Their blood pressure spikes, their heart rate goes up. So it's not actually accurate. So a lot of...
They should get out the coats
well,
then.
Well, hospitals to have like a lot of things that they do. Like the colors are always very muted. It's always very nice and warm, all that kind of thing. And some of that is to try and help people relax, because stress makes medical diagnosis really difficult. Yeah. So I think it's less the beautiful nurse rather than, oh, this is a doctor, I'm sick, maybe he's going to give me bad news, I'm scared. That is the real problem.
So what could you do to combat that though? Dress up all nice in a clown outfit could work.
Well, I think for a lot of people would be even worse. Imagine it. I'm just going to take your blood pressure. Yeah, I don't.
I've got some terrible news. And he's there dressed as a clown.
It's not going to inspire confidence, is it?
Okay, here's one. Because it's easier to digest than eat, is frozen ice cream better for you than melted ice cream? That's a great question.
It is a good question, and it depends on what you want to rank as being better for you, what the criteria are. Ingredients are the same. They are full of sugar and fat, which is why they taste delicious. Mm-hmm. Having a roughly equal amount of sugar and fat in something is that's just what we want.
Beautiful, sweet spot.
It's high energy, it's not sickening, and that's what humans crave, because when we were evolving and we didn't have food basically on tap, that was really worth eating. It was good reward. But if you want to think about it as closely as you can, which one is better? Frozen is probably slightly better for you.
Okay.
Because
I can work with this.
You have to heat it up inside your body to digest it.
Of course.
And that takes energy.
So you're burning calories.
So you burn... Now, you are not burning enough calories to justify eating an entire tub. But
that's not what you said.
But you probably burn fractionally more calories digesting frozen ice cream than you do anything that's approaching room or body temperature.
So it's healthier. It's healthier to eat frozen.
It's marginally healthier. It is not healthy, but it is delicious.
Here's a good point. When you buy a lottery ticket, your chances of becoming rich are almost 0%, but your chances of contributing to making someone else rich are 100%.
Yes.
So it's kind of blowing my mind, really.
It's a brilliant point.
I hate that.
The lottery is a tax on people that don't understand statistics.
Say this. No, he doesn't mean it. He doesn't mean that.
Yeah. So I had a wonderful, wonderful maths teacher when I was in school. Mm-hmm. Absolutely brilliant. Miss Joy, perfect. And she taught us statistics, and she used the lottery to explain it. And it's so unlikely that you're going to win a jackpot. It's so unlikely. It's massively unlikely.
Is it though?
Okay, so let's say there's 50 numbers.
Yeah.
So to get the first one correct is 1 in 50. Mm-hmm. And to get the next one, you multiply it by 50.
I'm lost already.
It's 2,500. And you keep going up. Now, they can come out in any order, which helps a little bit, but you're still looking at tens of millions to win.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, to win.
Oh, that's horrifying.
So every line that you have is in the terms of like millions or tens of millions. It depends on how many balls are in the draw and how many you have to get.
What's getting struck by lightning? What are the odds of that?
Oh, it's in the hundreds of thousands. You are more likely to get struck by lightning multiple times in your life
than win the lottery.
Well, it depends on what you do. If you're a park ranger, you're probably going to get struck by lightning a couple of times. But yeah, you're more likely to have like all sorts of things happen to you in sequence than you are to win the lottery. It's vastly unlikely. So yes, definitely.
I still put it on every now and then as well. Should I stop?
There's nothing wrong with taking a punt on it, but don't rely on it and make sure it's under control.
Okay.
Because buying lots of lottery tickets is just a way to make someone else richer. The person who sent in that question is correct.
Thank you for listening to A Normal Meets a Nerd, the podcast with a difference, because we want you to get involved by asking us some questions we can answer on the show. So head over to our socials at ANMAN Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and leave a question in the comments. The weirder the better, and you might be on the next episode. How good is that? So go ask a question, and yeah, stay tuned.